This is Part 3 Episode 162. Thanks to the Heart of Eternity, Long Haochen recovered his spiritual energy at an even faster speed than Yang Haoyu. But what use was there in that if Yang Haoyu were to not let him have the time to recover? The gap in strength between Long Haochen and Yang Haoyu was still considerable. However, this battle brought him especially huge benefits. In particular, he was given an important lesson regarding a domain's uses. Yang Haoyu had conceded for the sake of helping him carry out his plan. Very obviously, Long Chenying had already informed him, this number one powerhouse of the Night Temple, about Long Haochen's plan. Chen Zidian's look was filled with gratification and pleasant surprise, as he nodded to Long Haochen. Then, Long Haochen is victorious and advances to the fourth round. Since the stadium has sustained a massive destruction, today's matches are to be paused for the field to immediately be restored, and the competition will resume tomorrow in the morning. If Long Haochen's battle with Qiu Yonghao could be said to make him the focal point of attention, his battle with Yang Haoyu gave him famed accomplishment. That was a match opposing domains, opposing domain evolution with domain technique, and opposing the two magical beast companions. Although no one got to clearly see the last clashes, Long Haochen had already displayed his power to the whole audience. This 25-year-old youngster had convinced them all with his strength. Bright glimmer of hope would also be regarded just like the other 6 great temples from that point onward. Walking out from the barrier's scope, Long Haochen caught up with Yang Haoyu using large strides, bowing to him respectfully. "Grandpa Yang, thank you for your help." Yang Haoyu smiled to him. "It is not that I helped you, but you just made it off on your own. My original intention was to cut off your drive on the basis that failure is the mother of success, so that you could look for your own shortcomings after suffering a blatant defeat. But you managed to reverse my thinking by relying on your strength. You are the most talented youngster I have ever seen, yet you are showing a great steadiness and experience unfit to your age. I am leaving the Night Temple, as well as the whole alliance, to you. The old guys such as us will be supporting you on the side, so you can be at ease. I can really see humanity's emergence by looking at you, and the possibility of overcoming this dark age. If you have nothing else to do, come with me. I have some things to discuss with you." "Yes, Grandpa Yang." Long Haochen accepted hastily, Long Chenying patting his shoulders as he performed another standard night salute to Yang Haoyu. Although the alliance's great gathering had been interrupted in great chaos, it had more than enough manpower involved to take care of the exterior damage, while numerous artisans of the alliance were assigned to the repairs in shifts. Yang Haoyu quietly led Long Haochen out from the stadium. With their cultivation, remaining unnoticed couldn't be easier. Without proceeding to the Alliance's headquarters, Yang Haoyu brought Long Haochen to a familiar place, the Demon Hunt Squad's pagoda tower. Due to the temple's great gathering, this place was completely empty. Recognizing Yang Haoyu, the staff did not even utter a question, and left him to proceed to the top floor of the tower. Under Yang Haoyu's lead, Long Haochen proceeded with him to the 7th floor of the tower, somewhere he hadn't ever gone before. The 6th floor was used for the Demon Hunt Squad's mission announcements, and this 7th floor was a place only titled Demon Hunt Squads were qualified to access for taking missions. Although Long Haochen was already the captain of a titled Demon Hunt Squad, it was the first time he had come here. Upon arriving, he discovered with great surprise another person waiting for them in this 7th floor. "Senior Chen, you are here too?" Long Haochen asked him, pleasantly surprised to see the legendary chief referee of the temple's great gathering, Chen Zidian. Chen Zidian let out a laugh. "Old pal Yang has been throwing flirtatious winks at me before leaving. How could I not come?" Yang Haoyu replied unhappily, "How could you be so lacking of dignity when you are already so old, old Chen? Pay attention to your words in front of a youngster." Chen Zidian laughed. "What do you want me to pay attention to? I am just like that. Or, based on that, you should call me great ancestor in terms of seniority." "Wow, Haochen. Your performance gave me a whole new level of respect for you today." Long Haochen's face flushed. "Actually, I have lost. Grandpa Yang just let me win on purpose. There's still a great gap between Grandpa Yang and me." Chen Zidian shook his head. "Don't be tense because of the gap. It's okay as long as you have the potential. You are really an unprecedented case in history. Old Yang, you agree with me?" Yang Haoyu nodded. "I have never encountered such a genius as this child. I am even feeling jealous of him." Chen Zidian responded, "Seeing your battle, I couldn't help but think back about 10 years ago. Do you know, old pal Yang, it was 10 years ago that I met this guy Houchen for the first time. He was only about 15, but I found out about his gifts at that time. I told him that they should give their best to take over my legacy, to inherit the title of the Demon God Slayers. Yang Haoyu couldn't help but feel submerged with emotions as well. Good eyesight. Chen Zidian chuckled. I have always believed that we Demon God Slayers were rather famous, but do you know how this guy replied to me? Yang Haoyu had a puzzled look. Could it be that he refused? Chen Zidian continued with a laughing face. Of course he refused. He told me that if they could really one day become a titled Demon Hunt Squad, they did not want to get called Demon God Slayers, but Bright Glimmer of Hope. I have lived for over 300 years, but never expected to one day be shocked by a 15-year-old kid. I was brimming with shock that day, and the same went for my comrades. Glimmer of Hope, what a well-found game. To bring humanity a glimpse of hope in the midst of darkness. I haven't seen any of what they experienced in those 10 years, but I can see that all of it has borne fruit. At first, our lives should have come to their end 5 years ago, as a human cannot go against his fate. But with the start of that holy war, we were left with no choice but to keep ourselves alive through secret means, and after 5 more years passed, I can finally see hope, qualified successors, truly qualified successors. In fact, Chen Zidian had been following Long Houchen's group's return from demon territory. Speaking of which, it was truly the terrible will of heaven that they had initially fallen for the trap of the Demon God Emperor. The Demon God Slayers' Demon Hunt Squad had been concealed in Modu Core City all along. And, that year, Long Houchen's group having pulled such a large move in Core City, if the Demon God Slayers were present, they would surely have immediately come to their rescue. But when Long Houchen's group was coming in, the Demon God Slayers had happened to be running into the end of their lives. So the team provisionally had to withdraw from Modu to look for a secret underground to use the secret means to prolong their lives. Chen Zidian's group had already been living for over 300 years, having spent an even greater part of their lives in demon territory compared to the Temple Alliance. They actually had nothing much keeping them alive since long ago, but during that holy war, they couldn't bear to leave like that. If nothing was left to restrict the Demon God Emperor, humankind was bound to encounter a massive calamity. After Long Houchen's group terminated their seclusion in the Tower of Eternity, Long Houchen had been looking for Yu Yi, thinking of getting news from her, but her residence in the Moon Demon clan was already empty, devoid of any traces of living. Afterwards, Long Houchen used the contact signal of Demon Hunt Squad in Modu Core City, not expecting to get hold of Chen Zidian, leader of the Demon God Slayers. And there, Long Houchen learnt about the many changes that occurred on the continent during these past years, as well as obtaining news about the temple's great gathering on the verge of being convened. Chen Zidian had followed Long Houchen's group back, and had given advice for Long Houchen to decide after discussion, that they should directly participate in the temple's great gathering with only one goal: to put an end to the current scattered state of the Temple Alliance. Hearing Chen Zidian speak about nearing the end of his life, Long Houchen's expression darkened unconsciously, lowering his head in silence. Yang Haoyu responded smilingly, "No need to feel that way, Houchen. If you can show the hope of breaking out from the dark era before old Chen departs, I believe that he will be able to leave with a smile." Chen Zidian nodded with a beaming look. "Exactly. Old Yang, you must have called out this youngster here for some purpose. Speak straight." Yang Haoyu replied, "Originally, when Chen Ying mentioned about having him take over the lead of the Temple Alliance, and that the time had come to establish a whole new alliance, I was still skeptical. But in today's match, he persuaded me with strength, and I have decided to support him wholeheartedly. The alliance had been dispersed for far too long, but with the end of the Holy War finally came the best turning point. I believed that all other temples clearly witnessed today's match. Old Chen, do you think we should end the temple's great gathering ahead of time to avoid wasting more time?" Chen Zidian shook his head. "It won't do, the temple's great gathering is no trifling matter. And to these youngsters, it's also a significant experience. Let's rather keep the competition going. Or could it be that you don't believe in Houchen? Even if he cannot defeat Li Jingji in a 1 versus 1, I am very confident in their results in the next team competitions." Yang Haoyu declared, "In that case, let's keep it going. Houchen, I have actually called you here today to warn you about another matter. Please, do tell." Long Houchen replied respectfully. Yang Haoyu declared, "Establishing a new alliance is a must, and our objective this time is to establish an alliance with a highly centralized state power. You may even call it a nation. Your current strength is already sufficient, but you are still lacking an important thing: a divine throne. Hearing about Divine Throne, Long Houchen couldn't refrain from shaking. He still remembered vividly the first time he witnessed in shock the use of a divine throne by his father. The divine throne of doom and slaughter had left him a just too deep impression, giving him at that time a longing for becoming a divine knight one day. When are you planning on taking the divine throne's trial? Yang Haoyu asked solemnly. Long Houchen replied, the first thing I plan on doing after the temple's great gathering terminates, is to return back to our night temple to take on the trial of the divine thrones. But it's not only me, Han Yu and Zhong Fangfang will also come along. As they have already broken through the 9th step, they should have this qualification. Yang Haoyu nodded, you are indeed all qualified. I have called you over today in the hope that you can prepare yourself. If your objective is the divine throne of eternity and creation, you have to give it a deep consideration from today onwards. Long Houchen was shaken. He knew that Yang Haoyu should be the only living powerhouse of the Night Temple to have formally attempted to gain the approval of the divine throne of eternity and creation. Although he had failed, that experience was certainly the most precious thing that came out. Yang Haoyu asked, do you know why I have finally not become a divine knight? Long Houchen tried to answer, is that because you have been wholeheartedly focused on obtaining the approval of the divine throne of eternity and creation? Yang Haoyu showed a bitter smile, speaking of which, this is a matter regarding Starry Sky. When I was young, after climbing over the temple's great gathering, I had not managed to find a magical beast fitting me. Therefore, just like you, I went to look for one through the summoning array. Your multiple-headed magical beast should be from there. Speaking of which, we were both really lucky. I also gained the approval of Starry Sky there. The Starry Sky mythological beast's true power is fusion. It doesn't have any attached offensive and defensive abilities, but can draw out power from the Starry Sky to help me train and battle. Also, as my cultivation grows, its ability also grows gradually. This gave it the reputation of the #1 star-manipulating mythological beast. In some ways, although the divine thrones are the signboard of our night temple, the other 5 divine thrones alone will all bring me benefits far below Starry Sky. Starry Sky is not only a divine tool-like existence to me, but an exceptional companion helping me in cultivating. My talent is actually far below Old Chen, but it is Starry Sky's assistance that enabled my current attainments. But, Starry Sky didn't give me the choice. It told me that it won't attach itself to any divine tool of lower quality than itself, so I could only challenge the approval of the divine throne of eternity and creation, only to end up failing. Long Houchen came to a sudden realization. So, Yang Haoyu turned out to have such a story. Yang Haoyu replied, what amazed me today was not your cultivation, but the gap between Starry Sky and your multiple-headed magical beast. When you called out that multi-headed beast at the critical juncture, it caused Starry Sky to flee provisionally with just a roar. It's the first time I have had such an encounter ever since concluding my contract with Starry Sky. Do you know what thoughts Starry Sky spread to me at that time? Long Houchen shook his head. Starry Sky was terribly afraid. As far as I remember, Starry Sky has always been proud, even when becoming my contracted companion. But that was the first time I saw such a cowardly side of it. After the match ended, I asked it just what happened. After becoming silent for a short while, it told me that, just like it's the #1 Starry Sky, your multi-headed companion is the very first demon god that came to be. The two of them are existences of a whole different level, and Starry Sky did not agree to tell me more about it. The first demon god that came to be. Seeing the look of shock on Long Houchen's face, Yang Haoyu couldn't help but show great astonishment. Could it be that you don't know the antecedents of this magical beast of yours either? Long Houchen shook his head. At the time I summoned Haoyu in this world, he had just the looks of a lizard. At that time, he was covered in bruises. Then he went on to rescue Haoyu with his own blood at once, causing his second, light elemental, head to grow, after which Haoyu kept evolving, getting stronger and stronger, and he explained in a simple sentence that he even had the ability to destroy demon god pillars. Hearing Long Houchen's story, Chen Zidian and Yang Haoyu exchanged glances. These two legendary beings appeared filled with shock. They were originally under the belief that Long Houchen had relied on that pure light power as the sign of light to destroy demon god pillars. Only now did they realize that it was actually Haoyu's ability. So it was actually to make use of the blood contract between Haoyu and you to kill Haoyu that the demon god emperor wanted to kill you. Just what could Haoyu be to even cause the demon god emperor to fear him? Chen Zidian had a pondering look. Even with his over 300 years of living, he had no clue on what kind of magical beast Haoyue could be. Yang Haoyue heaved a smile. No need to think on it too deeply, old Chen. Although we don't understand Haoyue's antecedents clearly, we can be sure that he will be of great use. Could it be that you don't understand the binding of a blood contract? He's simply akin to a part of Hao Chen's body. Hearing this, Chen Zidian finally revealed a look of relief. Since that was the case, with the binding of the contract, there was no shortcomings in getting Haoyue as strong as possible. Yang Haoyu told Long Haochen, "It looks that with those two huge bulges on the two sides of this magical beast's neck, he has the possibility of growing even more heads. With 6 heads, he's already at the peak of the 8th step, so once he evolves, wouldn't his strength rise to an unimaginable measure? As long as his cultivation reaches roughly the 3rd rank of the 9th step, he will be certain to possess a domain ability. And then, with him joining with you, I will completely be no opponent for you, making you the real number 1 powerhouse of the Alliance at that time. Hao Chen, try to hurry the matter and help him achieve his breakthrough." Long Haochen nodded. Actually, over this period of over 4 years, Haoyue had not only recovered from all his wounds, but moreover his strength made huge leaps. In those years, a part of the spiritual energy he absorbed from the Tower of Eternity was passed on to Haoyue, who had an incredible accumulation of power. Since his accumulation was sufficient, he could already make a breakthrough at any time. But Haoyue told him by mental transmission that this breakthrough would very possibly draw out the strongest existences of his realm. Those powerhouses had long since taken the greatest measures, knowing that if they couldn't stop Haoyue from evolving this time, they would never possibly restrict Haoyue. So, Long Haochen needed to take absolutely safe precautions, as this related greatly to Haoyue and his team's life or death. After this temple's great gathering terminates, Long Haochen wanted to strive for acquiring a divine throne's approval before helping Haoyue make his breakthrough, to raise the certainty of managing to help Haoyue make his breakthrough. Yang Haoyu declared, "Apart from the divine throne of eternity and creation, all 5 of the others can only be called reproductions. Although they all reach the level of divine tool, they are on completely different levels compared to the divine throne of eternity and creation. With your talent and cultivation, you are bound to gain the approval from these 5 divine thrones, making you directly able to become a divine throne. But to really become the owner of the divine throne of eternity and creation, you must undergo its trial. Back then, I failed to pass it." "Trial?" Long Haochen asked curiously, "Grandpa Yang, what is the trial of the divine throne of eternity and creation about?" Yang Haoyu replied, "This is what I wanted to tell you about. The primary reason for my failure of that time was..." Long Haochen, Yang Haoyu and Chen Zidian had a private discussion for over 1 hour before exiting the Demon Hunt Squad's mission pagoda. Yang Haoyu told him about a lot of miraculous aspects of the divine throne of eternity and creation, while enlightening him a lot on the subject of domains, giving him plenty of benefits. The chaos of holy war gradually appeased, and thanks to the hard work of the powerhouses from the 6 great temples, the social state of Holy City returned to normal. The temple's great gathering was in the midst of getting restored. At least 1,000 artisans were involved, but by chance the defensive formation inside didn't suffer any damage, so only outside repairs were needed. Under the joint efforts of so many artisans, it took a day to finish restoring it all. Second day, morning. When Long Haochen led Bright Glimmer of Hope to return to the temple's great gathering, they almost instantly became the focal point of all powerhouses from the 6 great temples. The last 3 matches were rapidly undertaken, and 24 contestants came out of the lot. After the termination of the 3rd round, every winning contestant had gained 4 total points. After these matches went on, the Knight Temple only had 5 contestants left, with 6 for the Mage Temple, 3 for the Spiritual Temple, 2 for the Assassin Temple, and only 1 left for the Warrior Temple. Bright Glimmer of Hope was the greatest black horse, with a total of 7 people left. After 3 rounds, some variations were seen in the total scores. The Knight Temple had 66 points, the Mage Temple 65, Bright Glimmer of Hope 56, the Spiritual Temple 42, the Assassin Temple 34, and the Warrior Temple had 24. With only 10 contestants, Bright Glimmer of Hope had actually risen to the 3rd place after 3 rounds, and although a gap still separated them from the top 2, catching up wasn't feasible. Only a gap of 1 point remained between the Mage Temple and the Knight Temple as well. The individual competition was already at its final climax. The 4th round was bound to change the final rankings the most greatly. These matches would enable every contestant to gain a worth of over 8 points. Without a doubt, Bright Glimmer of Hope had already become the hottest topic in vogue. Up to 7 of the 12 matches would involve them. Chen Zidian's dignified voice reverberated once again. Fourth rounds of the individual competition, start. Two lights of selections came, producing swishing sounds. After traveling through the air, one of them directly fell on the lounge of the Night Temple. This was the most probable, as, after all, the Night Temple had 5 people left for this fourth round, while Bright Glimmer of Hope had 7 of them, making for over half of the contestants left from the third round. In a flicker of light, a knight from the Night Temple was picked alongside a powerhouse from the Mage Temple. The fourth stage of the competition started with intense clashes. After that great battle opposing Long Haochen and Yang Haoyu yesterday, today's Li Jingji looked extremely calm, seated on the first row of the Mage Temple's contestant booth. Like he ordinarily did, he carried a faint smile on his face, as if Bright Glimmer of Hope's outstanding performance had nothing to do with him. In the fourth rounds, the ones left seemed to be only powerhouses of the 9th steps, and only excellent figures at that. The competition thus became increasingly heated. After 1 hour passed, a half of the 12 matches went by. 3 of Bright Glimmer of Hope's ranks had appeared. Wang Yuan and Lin Xin passed the ordeal, while Zhong Fangfang lost to Li Jingji. For the 7th match, when the light of selection illuminated Long Haochen's body, the whole audience became quiet. Long Haochen did not look any different from yesterday, still carrying a light smile on his face, and dispersing a gentle aura. But now, no one underestimated this captain of Bright Glimmer of Hope anymore. Yang Haoyu was not very well known before his match against Long Haochen, but after the clashes of domains, Yang Haoyu's identity rapidly spread ear by ear. The number 1 powerhouse of the Night Temple. The ones that really came to this realization during this match were still after all very few, and all the great majority knew was that Long Haochen was the final victor of this match. For such a young titled Demon Hunt Squad captain to defeat in succession the number 1 powerhouses from the Warrior Temple and Night Temple, Long Haochen and Bright Glimmer of Hope had already become the main target of attention. The splendor of the 6 great temples was already outshined by their strong performances. For the 4th match, Long Haochen entered the stage once again. But, amazingly, it had to be wondered whether this could be called the will of heavens or really terrible luck, as he had this time to confront another domain wielder, as well as one of the most well-known powerhouses of the Temple Alliance, the head of the spiritual temple and wielder of the Beast Emperor domain, Chen Hongyu. Seeing that he had drawn Long Haochen as his opponent, Chen Hongyu couldn't help but shiver lightly. The one he was the most unwilling to face off against was actually Long Haochen. In the battle between Long Haochen and Yang Haoyu, he had already understood that there was quite a gap between Yang Haoyu's cultivation and his own. Although Long Haochen could be said to have had a modest victory against Yang Haoyu, the fact he had managed to keep up in such a situation was more than ample to prove this youngster's dominant power. In less than 5 years since their last confrontation, he already became a domain-wielding powerhouse. Losing against him would certainly be a great loss of face. But even winning against such a young person would be nothing glorious. So when Chen Hongyu came out from the spiritual temple side, his complexion was quite unsightly. Long Haochen was no Chen Ying'er, so as the head of the spiritual temple, he naturally couldn't just concede, much less just throw the game. Long Haochen took the lead to walk into the stadium, paying his respects to Chen Hongyu, performing a standard knight salute in front of him. Greetings, Temple Head Chen. Chen Hongyu only nodded, let's start. He was unwilling to speak more. This match could only be an all-out effort. After all, Long Haochen couldn't bring out offensive weapons such as in the previous match. Naturally, he was able to tell that if he hadn't had the sword of life and creation formed with those 2 divine swords, Long Haochen couldn't possibly cause those 2 evolutions of his domain. Winning against Long Haochen was not impossible for him. Putting the rest aside, he's a powerhouse reaching the 3rd rank of the 9th step, and Long Haochen should not yet have attained the 3rd rank. However, Chen Zidian really had a bad affinity with Long Haochen. Back then, his face-off against Bright Glimmer of Hope should originally be a totally one-sided match for him, but who could imagine that the instant Long Haochen's 6-headed beast came out, his 4-headed chimera immediately lost all fighting strength, and up to now, Chen Hongyu had yet to understand what kind of magical beast Long Haochen's mount could be. Thinking about how his summoned beast would certainly be suppressed, he did not feel good at all. However, in this match, after all, he didn't have Chen Ying'er to suppress his domain, so his Beast Emperor domain was able to display its full power. But whether it would hold water was hard to say. In the past years, Chen Ying'er's cultivation also increased significantly, be it in his control over his domain or his control over his summoned beast and his quality of summons. Lifting his hands, milky white radiances appeared in Chen Hongyu's palms, turning in a blink of an eye into a milky white ball of light floating in front of him. No equipment could be used, so one could only make an imitation made of spiritual energy. A gate of light instantly took shape behind Chen Hongyu, and his figure flashed, directly disappearing after passing through the gate. The divine unicorn reappeared in front of Long Haochen. It wasn't that he found that sufficient, but Hao Yue's abilities were just overly overbearing and likely to cause injuries. As this was the temple's great gathering and not a battle against demons, he wouldn't lightly let him come out unless absolutely necessary. With the rise of his cultivation, Hao Yue's tyrannical and destructive aspects rose at extreme speed, and Long Haochen sometimes had difficulty to control well his emotions. The divine unicorn was not the same. Star King had followed Long Haochen since the time he was just a starlight unicorn, and couldn't have evolved without him. Therefore, although there was no binding pact between Long Haochen and him, he had extremely deep feelings toward Haochen. And moreover, following a light god body owner such a Long Haochen was extremely beneficial for his cultivation. Unicorns were innately close to light, so who else than Long Haochen could get as intimate to him? Still, Star King had his own issues. Having evolved into a divine unicorn recently, he was still in the midst of adapting, and unable to use a lot of a divine unicorn's abilities. Otherwise, the boost he had provided in yesterday's match to Long Haochen would in no way have been so simple. One of Long Haochen's hopes was to stir up Star King's potential through continuous battles, to genuinely make him a divine unicorn. A terrifying roar shook up the whole stage, as a huge figure came out from Chen Hongyu's summoning gate. This huge figure was a whole 15 meters tall, standing as imposingly as a mountain, and its whole body covered with white hairs flickering in metallic lusters. Standing vertically, it pounded his pair of huge fists onto its own chest, issuing loud damn 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 sounds. Long Haochen had never seen such a huge orangutan before. Amongst magical beasts, orangutan were all powerhouses, not only possessing unyielding capabilities, but, moreover, a much higher intelligence than ordinary magical beasts. His powerful physical capabilities, nimble speed, and very dangerous attacks made them one of the favorite targets of summoners. When Long Haochen's group faced off Chen Hongyu 5 years ago, he had not seen this magical beast, be it because Chen Hongyu intentionally did not call it out back then, or did not have it yet. From the fluctuations it released, one could determine that it was certainly one of Chen Hongyu's 9 possible packed magical beasts, and not an ordinary summon. And, to Long Haochen's shock, Chen Hongyu's presence totally disappeared after he stepped into this light gate. None of his mental inspections actually managed to find traces of his presence. Just what summoner ability could that be? That huge orangutan roared, and immediately rushed toward Long Haochen at frantic speed, accelerating all the way. In only 2 dashes and 1 leap, it was already in front of Long Haochen. Abruptly raising its 2 hands, it immediately punched straight into Long Haochen's face. Before its palm arrived, a terrifying gale was already whizzing through, and more terrifyingly, a terrible cold air enveloped both Haochen and the divine unicorn at the time the orangutan punched out. An ice element magical beast of the 10th rank, equivalent to a human powerhouse of the 9th step. This punch alone was sufficient for Long Haochen to sense its great power. Against a summoner, the greatest priority was to stop the opponent from calling out all his summoned beasts. The piercing chill was not only highly invasive, but moreover caused their speeds to drop down. Long Haochen didn't avoid such an attack, crossing his hands to form a parrying posture. With a sound of bang, a lot of people unconsciously believed that Long Haochen would get pushed away by this punch, but the final result was the complete opposite. Upon contact of that domineering fist with Long Haochen's completely contrasting hands, the orangutan's figure visibly froze, his body being ejected the next instant. It smashed all the way towards the light gate. The divine unicorn flapped its wings and brought Long Haochen to chase all the way. A huge golden sword appeared in midair. Carrying some similarities with Qiu Yonghao's sword intent domain, that huge light sword's domineering sword intent instantly locked onto the orangutan, chopping down. To say nothing about Long Haochen's heart of eternity, his internal spiritual energy reached 290,000, so even if his cultivation was a bit weaker, the divine unicorn he rode should not be forgotten. The divine unicorn's boost of his spiritual energy was at least of 100,000, totaling over 150,000 if sacred light was to be added up. Otherwise, Long Haochen couldn't be a match in yesterday's domain clash. This ice orangutan was a powerful magical beast of the 10th rank, but only equivalent to an initial stage powerhouse of the 9th step. In a direct clash, its ice attribute was no match for Long Haochen's light, and neither was its spiritual energy a match, naturally causing it to be ruthlessly sent flying. The temple's great gathering did not allow one to wound or kill the enemy, but summoned beasts were exceptions. Seeing Long Houchen, his sword strike looked about to take the ice orangutan's life. Only when facing it for real could one truly realize the extent reached by his sword intent. Reaching the level of materializing the sword's soul, the eruption of his sword intent reached a quite higher level of power than Xiao Yonghao. That ice orangutan had an indescribable sense of terror, and was instantly pressured to a great extent, and locked into an inescapable state. All it could do was to shout grudgingly, crossing its hands to block the attack. But everyone could tell that the sword strike overflowing with might that came down was really not something he could block. All of this took place just too fast. In Chen Hongyu's view, Long Houchen was in the end Chen Ying's captain, and wouldn't in the end go immediately for the kill. This ice orangutan he sent actually didn't have much utility, except from hopefully delaying Houchen. But Long Houchen's sudden burst of power not only showed him Houchen's great strength, but moreover caused him to get panicky, and hastily accelerate the completion of his spell, totally wrecking his rhythm. But Chen Hongyu was indignant at Long Houchen's really too fast burst of power, making him already too late for the rescue. This ice orangutan being one of his packed magical beast, in case Long Houchen was to kill it, his strength would get seriously affected. Moreover, a summoner has great emotions towards his packed magical beast. For a moment, Chen Hongyu couldn't help but become greatly furious, great surges of emotions rising into him. Split in two in a sword strike. Of course not, Long Houchen was the sign of light, not a sign of slaughter. And moreover, he was facing one of his allies from the Temple Alliance, not a demon. When that huge sword looked about to split the ice orangutan, the sword blade was suddenly reversed, the attack turning into using the flat part, beating the ice orangutan's arms. In yesterday's battle against Yang Haoyu, Houchen was completely suppressed cultivation-wise, but the opposite happened today with this ice orangutan, whose spiritual energy was completely suppressed by its opponent. Bang! The ice orangutan's body smashed the stiff ground, fragments of ice splattering on his chest, the defensive magic attached to him getting completely pierced through. Its head took a direct fall, and from the looks, it had completely lost its fighting strength. And that was Long Houchen showing mercy. After breaking the orangutan's arms, his massive sword intent shot up above its head, causing it to lose consciousness. If he really wanted, he had at least 10 means to kill this magical beast of the 10th rank without much effort. With a wave of his hand, an intense bright light gushed out all around Long Houchen, shrouding the whole field in a flash. A sweet-sounding echo came, the light god domain. Right now, he gave off the feeling of going all out, not showing any reserves nor probing. After that huge light sword defeated the ice orangutan, the amplification of the light god domain could be sensed, instantly gaining in substance. Long Houchen waved his right hand, and immediately shot a projectile directly at that light gate. This aside, both Long Houchen's hands were crossed in front of his body, and after the Heart of Eternity pulsed thrice, another white-colored blade flew up, chasing after that huge light sword and directly causing it to turn into an incandescent color. The terrible sword intent even caused cracks to appear on the defensive barrier opposite. The light god domain was not only about domain domination and elemental domination. It caused all Long Houchen's light attribute abilities to gain a terrifying boost. This blow fused sword soul and sword intent in one. Looking at Long Houchen's displayed move from the booths of the warrior temple, Xiao Yonghao finally understood that Long Houchen had been lenient on him that day. Being able to utilize sword soul was not as simple as only owning it. Of course, this was accomplished with the help of the light god domain. After discussing with Yang Haoyu and Chen Zidian, Long Houchen had already returned to train in seclusion for the rest of the previous day, and until the matches of today. In just a day, he had gained a whole new understanding of his domain's capabilities. Naturally, his cultivation developed accordingly. His newest comprehension acquired through battle was naturally showing the greatest effects. After his resurrection, Long Houchen's greatest regret was Yating's disappearance. As his heart was smashed into pieces, the spiritual stove fused with her disappeared then, and even the ability of the saint's spiritual stove left along with it. In the process of thinking back about Yating, Long Houchen gained a deeper level of understanding towards sword intent, which is how he gained sword soul. At the time he had first made use of sword soul, he faintly became aware that Yating was not dead for real. She seemed to still be existing in a part of his body, but just couldn't be vividly sensed. He believed that as long as his sword soul could grow stronger, there would come a day that he would be able to awaken Yating from her slumbering area. Sword soul, as the name implies, consists of bestowing a soul to one's sword. A sword intent with no sword soul wouldn't last for too long. As a result, an attack from sword intent would frequently be lacking in adaptability. But with a soul in the sword, sword intent gains myriads of variations, making it inevitably far more powerful. In the past, when the holy sword wielder Yi Wushang had attained this realm, he had become the #1 talent in the warrior temple. And now, Long Haochen clearly also attained it. On the Night Temple's lounge, Yang Haohan couldn't help but nod secretly to Long Haochen. The match they had yesterday was mostly a contest of domains. If at that time, Long Haochen had used his sword intent fused with sword soul along with the light god domain, that would be a great threat against him. Only, because the two of them were immersed in a clash of domains, Long Haochen just did not use it. A thunderous roar rang out, and immediately, a four-colored luster came out from that light gate, colliding with Long Haochen's huge sword. Speaking of which, that four-colored radiance were really bizarre. Upon clashing with Long Haochen's huge sword fused with sword intent and sword soul, it not only stopped the advance of the huge sword, but also condensed into four spherical projectiles of different colors. Long Haochen urged out his sword intent, and abruptly, the light god domain shrank, gathering its amplifying effects. And that instant, those four projectiles blowed up. A terrifying blasting force caused instantly massive pressure onto the defensive barrier outside, to the extent of forcing Chen Zidian to once again intervene personally. Long Haochen's immense light sword was smashed to thin pieces, as he was pushed 100 meters away alongside the divine unicorn in a deep shock. The light gate enlarging, a massive figure rushed out from within. That was nothing else but Chen Hongyu's contracted beast, the four-headed chimera. Seeing that four-headed chimera, Long Haochen almost had the unconscious urge of summoning Hao Yue. In front of Hao Yue's blood suppression, this four-headed chimera should not be of any use. But very rapidly, Long Haochen dispelled these thoughts, because he sensed that this four-headed chimera seemed to be growing to a whole different level from before. The first change was relevant to Long Haochen's previous attack, which already exerted all his strength. Even a powerhouse of the 3rd or 4th rank of the 9th step would find it strenuous to respond. That was an attack mixing both sword intent and sword soul, but it was simply received like that by the four-headed chimera. It was far from being as powerful previously, and the difference was really very wide. The other change was that in the eyes of this four-headed chimera, Long Haochen could see a great wrath, an extremely fierce human nature. That's... Without leaving Long Haochen the time to ponder over the issue, the four-headed Medusa launched a powerful attack, all four heads spitting breath simultaneously, not aimed directly at Long Haochen, but gathering in midair to turn into a four-colored ball shot sharply at Long Haochen. In the meantime, a four-colored radiance of blue, red, yellow and green instantly spread out from the four-headed Medusa. That was actually a four-elemental domain. Chen Ying'er was in great alarm seeing this scene, murmuring, "Wow, Grandpa. To actually have achieved contracted fusion, he really has already broken through the 3rd rank of the 9th step." Lin Xin asked curiously, "What is a contracted fusion?" Chen Ying'er replied, "That's the fusion between a summoner and his contracted beast. Grandpa's current strength has made one with the four-headed chimera Xingxuan. But the downside is that he cannot utilize any more summoning magic that way. However, Xingxuan's strength has been greatly upgraded, and is now fully under Grandpa's control. Her abilities have risen to a next level. Haven't you seen the domain Xingxuan has just unleashed?" "Pooh-hoo." Lin Xin suddenly laughed. Chen Ying'er asked in puzzlement, "What are you laughing about, has drug bro?" Lin Xin laughingly replied, "Oh, I suddenly realized that if you rise to the 3rd rank of the 9th STPE, you will have this contracted fusion ability. Won't that turn you into a pig?" "Waha, so funny. You?" Chen Ying'er erupted in fury, fiercely pinching off Lin Xin's waist. The others already couldn't help, but burst out in laughter as well. That's actually exactly the case. McDull being just a little pig, if Chen Ying'er undergoes contracted fusion with it, that will really turn her into a pig. In the stadium, Long Haochen was able to sense abnormalities in the four-headed chimera, but hadn't guessed that this was a contracted fusion between Chen Hongyu and Xingxuan. Four-elemental chaotic magic. Although that was just a simple spit, the authenticity of its might was already proved. Long Haochen didn't dare tarry. Raising his right hand, a bright white glow came out instantly in the empty space, bombarding that four-elemental cage. Instant cast, Light of Trial. At the time this Light of Trial burst out, it emitted a clear and all-around spreading sound. All around it, series of angels were faintly seen revolving. In the midst of a loud explosion, the four-elemental cage ruptured, and although its massive blasting force engulfed the light of trial, it didn't come flying toward Long Houchen's side until the end. This video will end here.